Would like to welcome Ron Foster with Saltworks Security. His journey in tech began as a trainer for HP UX Unix and quickly transitioned to Solaris at Sun Microsystems. He shifted his focus post 9/11 to SDLC, specializing in performance engineering and observability. He now oversees application security testing at Saltworks Security, driving advancements in securing applications against emerging threats. I do have a reminder that everybody should fill out their passport, turn it in at the raffle box near registration, because there are going to be 2 different passports today and tomorrow. And with that, we have your PenTest reporting sucks, how to revolutionize PenTest delivery. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully the conference is going good for you so far. I've seen some pretty good talks. I had to leave Jason Haddock's talk early, though. I was kind of bummed about that, so I could come over here. I love Jason. He's freaking awesome. Hey, how many pen testers we have in here? How many people consuming pen test results? It sucks for both of you, probably. So the goal today is just to talk about why are we still delivering reports like it's 2020, or I feel like 1995 sometimes. It seems like the more we advance, some things don't change. And at least if you're doing any external delivery for pen testing, you're probably still using Word docs or Excel spreadsheets. And why? It's painful. It's so painful. So just want to try to talk a little bit today about what I've done to try to fix that and kind of where the industry, I think, is going in addressing some of this. So pen test reporting sucks. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth because I can't see their stuff and my stuff, so we'll do a little dance here. How to revolutionize pen test delivery. I've been breaking stuff overall for about 20 years. So SDLC stuff started out more on the performance engineering side. But in the performance engineering, especially 20 years ago, you just lived in a proxy. That was your whole life. That's what you did. You captured traffic, you manipulated traffic, and you emulated it with hundreds, maybe thousands of users. That made pen testing a pretty easy transition. I mean, let's just be honest. So overall, I just like breaking stuff, and it's kind of a fun place to be. You know, I work from home, got kids. They get to watch me break stuff, and I get to help them break stuff. You know, and if you've ever been a dad, the first time your kid brings you something you can't fix, that's that sobering moment, you know. But you know, I let them know, hey, stuff gets broken. Sometimes we can't fix it. It is what it is. As we look at the landscape, you know, for me, I want to think about, you know, the importance of pen testing. All of us here probably use some type of tool these days, like a Plex Track or a PwnDoc or something like that. You know, Defect Dojo. There's tons of different tools out there, but they're very pen tester focused. They're for me to use. They're not really to be consumed by everybody else. It's just a tool that I use to stick my results in. Somebody may look at it, but not the people that really make the decisions look at it, the people who write checks. And those are really the people we're concerned about because they're the ones that dictate where I get to get more money to buy more fun tools and toys and things of that nature, or maybe hire people because I need that. So visibility is a problem when we're delivering results, and most of the tools that are out there are focused on my end result or my user experience as a tester, and not really from the delivery standpoint. So I just want to kind of talk about some of that. So, you know, when we look at reports, you know, they're a crucial communication tool between us, developers, stakeholders, all the type of stuff. And if we don't do it well, it causes confusion. I'm sure we've been on some call with some stakeholder or some developer, and they don't understand this finding or why is this even really a risk and all those types of things. And I like to use an analogy a lot of times when I'm dealing with any type of stakeholder. No matter what you feel about the news organization from a political standpoint, the tagline from Fox News, "We report, you decide," is kind of like what we do as security folks. I can't necessarily tell you what is a risk to your business because I'm not the stakeholder in your business. I can tell you all the information around it, why I think it's bad, but it's up to you to say, is this really a risk? So I always like to preface that when I get into this stuff is, so we have to make things very, how do I say this, very easy button for everybody. It's got to be easy button for the devs. It's got to be easy button for the stakeholders, and that can be problematic sometimes. We get over technical or we're not verbose enough, and it causes problems. So when we build these reports, they need to be well structured, and that's another thing too. Most of us have some type of template, or if we're using Defect Dojo, or if we're using PwnDoc or some other tool like that, we have some template we're probably using in there. Some of us may have multiple templates. Trying to get our testers to use the correct templates or even issue sometimes is a problem, so enforcing that becomes really important as well. Poor reporting. When we don't report well, things don't get acted on in a good amount of time, and that's problematic as well. Most of us have some type of policy that says things need to be tested at a certain interval, they need to be remediated at a certain interval. If we have a defect type of critical or high, those have a higher or a faster rate of needing to be remediated, or you can't even put your stuff in production potentially. And if you can't do that, then these are things we paid you to build because they make us money, and now we're not making money on the thing we paid you to build. So everyone wants to make sure we're moving on that. Some of the common problems I've seen when delivering results is making sure that when we look at the critical nature of the reports that, there is no subpar reporting practices. We're all delivering in the same way, and we're delivering consistency. And these are some things that I dealt with even internally with my folks and trying to figure out a way to do that. Now, SaltWorks, the company I work for, we do a lot of DevSecOps stuff, so we're big on integration, we're big on building pipelines, but we also build an ASPM solution as well. And this is a buzzword you're probably hearing in a lot of places. You went to the vendor hall, you saw multiple vendors with this ASPM solution. It's a new Gartner category, and a lot of people had tools that were working on like this before that was even a thing. We had clients who were using Splunk, and Splunk just wasn't doing it for them. It wasn't showing them everything they needed to see. It wasn't hitting all the spots they needed to hit. And for us, we really are there to not have a client relationship. We want to be a partner with you, and we want to help you fix your problem. So we started building a solution that would fill in that term of ASPM. So we didn't know that's what we were doing, but apparently that's what we were doing, and we're kind of here now. And as I'm watching this thing get built, they're saying, hey, we're looking at this other thing too, and it's a way that pen testers could possibly use those. That's a great idea. So I got to start feeding input into that about my own delivery internally as to the way I wanted that to look, the way I wanted it to act, things that I saw problems or pain points that I had with other solutions, because I was using PwnDoc and tools like that. I was like, hey, can we make it do this? Can we do this? And it's come a long way, and it's pretty cool. But and that's what I use internally for delivery, because it solves a lot of problems for me. But what we want to talk about in the rest of this is just talking about the lack of clarity in our reports, making them concise, any inconsistent reporting formats we may have, the context, business impact, any poorly documented findings, because the more junior people are, the more senior they are, you're going to have a variance sometimes of documented findings, ineffective recommendations, and also delaying in reporting. So when we start looking at the very first part of this, overly technical jargon, when we're dealing with non-technical people, it becomes problematic. I saw a really good meme the other day. It was a person that said, look, I use ChatGPT or some AI generation tool, and I made this cool program. The guy's like, hey, can I see it? Can you show it to me? He goes, sure. It's at 127.0.0. whatever. So, and how many times do we work with developers that understand their IDE very well, but they don't understand maybe the tech stack they're implementing into? So we see that all the time. So it's kind of the same thing with our reporting. We need to be technical enough so people understand it, but not overly technical that they get lost in the weeds, because really at the end of the day, the stakeholders are the ones that are driving all this. Also, any excessive detail, it's going to turn people off. Anytime I talk to my wife about work, tech stuff, yeah, she shuts off. She's like, I don't care. I know you stare at a screen 10 to 12 hours a day. I don't care. I don't know anything about it. When's dinner? It's kind of like that. Let's kind of move along. We also have lots of inconsistent reporting formats. If I look at, what's spit out by PwnDoc versus what's put out by PlexTrack or any other types of tools, there's not a lot of consistent delivery. And if I'm a consumer of these tools and I'm hiring an outside firm to deliver these results, I may get 10 or 15 different types of documents from them, and they all are different types of formats, and things are laid out differently. I've got to parse through these things, weed through them, and then figure out what do I need to take back to the people to fix the things that we find, because we've got to do remediation. We've got to handle all the things that are delivered to us. And I do internal and external delivery, so I can see a lot of this. I cover both sides of it. Inefficient context and the business impact. At the end of the day, back to the Fox News analogy, I need to be able to enumerate and look at how these findings relate to the business risks. I always use an example when I'm having discussions with people about head, and if you've done penetration testing, you know that's an easy one. If we use the head verb in an HTTP request, we're going to get back all the verbs that the application accepts. Well, any penetration test worth of salt is going to try all the verbs anyway. That's a default thing. You're going to try every single verb when you're making your request. So why is this listed as a high risk when you look at most scanners or engines that spit out stuff? I can't answer that question for you. So that's up to the business to figure out, hey, is this really a risk to me? Because the hackers are going to do this anyway. I just gave them an easy button. But almost every scanning tool I use risks listed as a high. That's something I don't understand why they do that. I think it's more informational, but you know, that's another one of those things that as a business and a risk, you have to kind of figure that out. And so we have to be really detailed in our reporting and how we deliver that. Also, prioritization. We have all these risks. We may say it's a critical or a high, but how do we actually add context to that so they know which ones do I really need to remediate first? And is it an issue that is happening all over, across all of our applications? If we have 15 different pen tests done, not just scans, but actual manual testing, we see the same issue pop up over and over and over again. Why is that? Is it a developer that maybe has some bad code practices? Is it just a library we're using that we're not aware of that is causing us to have these results? You know, and if we're looking at individual pen test results from different vendors or even internally if we're delivering it, it's sometimes hard to see this. So poorly documented findings is a problem. You know, sometimes we have incomplete or inaccurate information. We have unclear evidence. One of the things that I really want to work on with our tool is to make sure that the tools that I use every day, like Burp and Nessus and stuff like that, it's really easy to get those findings into the tool and also enhance them if I need to, and make sure that all that's really clear and concise. Ineffective recommendations. How do we fix it? Most organizations, or at least pen testing teams, if you're internal, you do want to try to give really good guidance to the developers on how to fix that. If you're doing external delivery, you want to give good guidance as well, but you don't want to tell them exactly how to do it, because if the fix doesn't work or there's another attack that exploits that in the future, they might try to come back on you and say, well, you told me to do it this way. So you want to make sure you point them to the guidance on how to fix it, but you don't want to tell them exactly how to do it. You know, that's something we kind of struggle with, is how much information is too information and what is good information, but we want to make sure our reports effectively deal with those recommendations. And oftentimes our reporting is delayed. I don't know if any of you work in a team of pen testers, but if you got multiple testers doing a test, you may have someone who's really good at NetPen, you may have a person that's really good at AWS stuff, and they're all trying to put their results into an engine or create findings. Sometimes aggregating those results into a clear, consistent single report, man, it's tough. And that was one of the biggest things I was struggling with, is when I was doing team testing, was sometimes it was taking me a week to 2 weeks just to deliver a report, because I was trying to pull it all together and make sure it was clean and ready and good to go. So this was kind of problematic for me. So when we start looking at reporting formats, standardizing the formats was a big deal for me, as well as standardizing testing. I know this is more of a talk about reporting, but the testing itself leads into that. So one of the things in my team that I focus on is making sure we have very clear, consistent methodologies that everyone uses. So if a junior comes in or if a senior is testing, they have the same checklist they run to get through basic testing. That has to be done before you do any artsy stuff or go down pass. You have to do this checklist first. This is the minimum stuff. And you know, a lot of it's based on OWASP and other methodologies that we've kind of combined and enhanced to create our own checklist. But that has to be done first. That way I know consistently if person A delivers or person C delivers, we're getting the same results. And that has to go also into our reporting. I need to make sure that at the end of the day, all the reporting formats are the same and they're consistent. And it kind of goes to the external delivery again. If I'm a consumer of these reports, I'm probably not going to be getting super awesome, consistent results, and that could be problematic. So when we start looking at the next aspect of this, providing the context and business impact, everything's tied to money. So if I say, hey, we have these risks, we have these issues, it's this vulnerability type, critical, high, or whatever, the business only cares about the dollars attached to whatever. We have the developers that say, I have this sprint cycle, I have these things on the board, I have to I have to build these things. Now you're telling me I can't work on the things that's supposed to be generating revenue for the company. Instead, I've got to do remediation. So now you're pulling me off the work I'm supposed to be doing and do break fix work, and no one ever wants to do that. That's the stuff you always get pushback on, and there's the balance for all that. So we have to make sure that we provide all the context and business impact so we can prioritize the issues that need to really be fixed first. And that can be problematic when you're doing manual reporting. And I know a lot of people still are. So improving those findings, they're only valuable if they lead to actions. I'm sure that we all work inside of organizations where we say, hey, we found these issues, and have you fixed those yet? Have you fixed those yet? Have you fixed those yet? And if they're not fixing the issues we find, it's great, we're checking a box, but it's really not leading to a better security posture of the organization. And that's really our focus, is looking at the security posture of the organization itself. At the end of the day, I need to be able to prove that the work I'm doing is adding value to the business. So I need to show return on investment. I also need to figure out, hey, when I need more people, when I need more tools, I need all these things, how can I quantify the spend on that? So showing the maturity of our program and showing the value I'm providing to the business is critical. And if we're still delivering pen test results the way we've been doing traditionally, that can be hard to do sometimes. So, I don't know what happened there. When we use solutions that integrate into application security project management tools, it changes the game all the way around. So we're no longer relying on actual documents like, spreadsheets, things of that nature. We actually start looking at ways to deliver all this stuff in a much more consistent manner. How many people have actually used an ASPM tool yet? Anybody actually using anything like that? I know everybody now, when I go to scanning, when I look at all the scanning tools that we use, almost everyone's like, hey, we also offer ASPM. And it's just in bolting a dashboard on top that gives me a graph. That's pretty much all it is. And I'm like, well, that's not really application security posture management, because what is the whole acronym is, I want to know the posture of my application security program. You just giving me a graph is not really solving that. So I kind of need to know a lot more than that. So what do we see in ASPM solutions? Well, we get to show the value proposition. That's one of the big things, and that's how we want to start delivering. When we look at how traditionally the shift is going to everything's being inside of a portal or something of that nature that we're tracking, ASPM solutions are the logical path for our pen test results to live. There's quite a few, it's a brand new Gartner space, so you're gonna start seeing a lot of buzz around this. There aren't a lot of tools out there that are not free. I mean, pretty much everything out there is pretty costly. So one of the tools I use is free, and free is always good, so that's why I use it, because we're always budget constrained. And it's also a tool I help build, so it kind of checks a lot of boxes. But it leads to all the things that we've been talking about. It leads me to actionable results, and it leads me to a way where I can start creating dashboards. So the person who owns all this type of the company, those C-level people, they can build their dashboard. They want to see everything. We also have the business owners themselves, or the business line owners, that will need to see just the stuff I'm responsible for. And then we have the developers. They don't care about any of it. They just know, I got stuff to do. What are the things that I need to fix? And that's it. So one of the things that ASPM solutions do, if they're true ASPM tools, is they integrate business logic and business rules into the tool. So I can start wrapping things like, what is our testing cycle? What is the remediation time that I have to fix these on? And I can start saying whether we're compliant or whether we're not compliant. The tool I use is called Saltminer Community, and it allows me to enforce all this stuff. I can build templates for my methodology, I can build templates for my reporting, and I can do all of this. When I deliver to my clients now, I do not generate a report for them. I say, this is a free tool. It takes 10 minutes to set up in an Ubuntu instance, or we have a Docker image. You can spin this up, and I will send you the project file. And then you can see every request response pair, all the information put in by the tester. If they had exploit code, it's going to be right there in the tool. So you will see everything. You can look at this yourself. It's actionable information. You can have your developers look at it, and then you can start managing all of your test results in a tool instead of actually just looking at a report. So this is kind of the dashboard of the tool that I use. This is just a really simple burp scan that I did against one of the vulnerable apps that are out there. And we see a lot of stuff here. So we see, first of all, We see the issues by vulnerability type, and we also see the severity of the issues. And this is the kind of stuff that's just fantastic. This is the stuff that everyone wants to see, and it enables enterprise-wide application-style security. So now we see everything. And when you look at a full ASPM solution, this is just pen testing data. If we have our full solution up, I could see every single vendor that we work with. I could see pulling in my Fortify data, Black Duck, whatever tools I'm using, I can ingest that data, so I see all of my criticals. I see all of my highs, but guess what is usually missing from those? Pen test data. When we look at any solution that aggregates our data, pen test data is always missing. Now it's here. So now the guy who's never at the table, we're at the table now. They see the work that I do. They see all the stuff that's there, and we can start actually dealing with that information, fixing it, figuring out where there's problems. Another great feature about an ASPM solution, specifically this one, is ours is based on Elastic. So you can go in here and you can build literally any dashboard that you want. Notice I have a technical debt graph that doesn't have anything in it because it was a single scan. But if we had a period over time, we can start saying, hey, these issues are not being fixed. So we have technical debt here. So now we can start really dialing in lots of issues around our organization about we're not maturing. We're not maturing our organization. We're kind of in a holding pattern, and these are some areas we need to dig into to fix some things. Scan types, I just have pen here in my personal dashboard. When I use this, I also have open source, API scanning. I have it all there. So, but this is just for pen testing, kind of looking at the pen test data. I could also drill down into the data and see, I was testing its testfire.net, and I can see all the issues that are there. I could click on the URI to the right in the solution. It would show me all the information about it, request response pairs, any information put in by the tester, when it was discovered, so I can start tracking how long has this thing been out there, when was the last time it was actually tested, when does it need to be tested again, whatever the rules are within your organization as far as how you handle issues and remediations. Having your stuff in an ASPM solution like this is going to be a much more effective way to deal with the information. Pen testing team. So one of the things I did, and it's actually going to be put out in the Git repo, you can just grab it. I took the entire OWASP methodology for the web application testing and created a template for it. So if you have nothing whatsoever, you can literally import this project, and you have step-by-step every piece of the OWASP methodology. So you can say, here's step one, we do information gathering. Here's all the portions of information gathering. We walk through those. Here's all the authentication pieces. Here's all the session management pieces, et cetera, et cetera. So you have an actual checklist to go through, and there's over 150 items in the OWASP methodology. So if you are new to pen testing or you're trying to start a pen testing practice, you have a framework here already out of the box that you get for free that you can actually work with in this tool. And then you can build your own. You can build as many type of templates as you want. If you have an API checklist that you need to run, these are the things we test there. I know if I'm testing GraphQL versus REST, those are going to be some different types of testing that I do because, GraphQL is more query-based, whereas REST is more just standard HTTP calls, so I test those differently. So I have different checklists for my organization. Also, I do all my testing for the most part in Burp. I just love Burp. It's awesome stuff. We have a translator connector, so if you're using Burp, you're using Nessus. We're working on Zap right now because I know a lot of people like Zap still, especially if you're working for universities. They don't usually have the budget that a lot of companies have, so they're still using a whole lot of open source tools. So we're working on getting Zap in there as well. If there's any tools people are not using, we just have them reach out to us, and we start spinning up a connector for that so we can get translators written so we can get that information into the tool. But I can do my burp work, and when I'm done, I just literally export it as a burp XML file, and it comes right into SaltMiner, and I have all my issues there. All the request response pairs, everything you see in the actual burp finding is automatically there. When I'm done with all this, if you really just have to have a Word doc, you can just press a button and spit it out. So it's not a problem to do so. You can create as many templates as you want. I do have some templates created like for standard testing, for remediation follow-ups, which has some extra charts in there saying these were the initial counts, these are the new counts. So I can actually show the deviation of what we've originally found and what was actually fixed when we did the remediation follow-up. as well as a big thing for me was issue templating. So making sure that we're all using the same language. I don't know how many times when you're working with a group of people and you're testing, this person's pulling language from this CVE, this person's pulling language maybe from like an OffSec site, this person's going to the burp site, pulling language there to build all the issue information in regards to the issue they found. So you get a report that has little language all over it from all over the place. And this way I enforce the actual language that's used. And this is a sample template. I have this available for free. You can just import it, but it's got I think like 670, 100 issues, something like that in there. But it's just all generic language, so you can go in there and everyone's using the same language, but you can create whatever you want. The cool thing about this product is everything's JSON based, so you just edit the file, bring it in, it works. And we provide templates too, so we show you the exact JSON template, so you can use that. You've got the whole layout of it. So you just modify it to do what you want to do, you're done. Same thing with all the roles, everything's all JSON files. So you just literally go in, you edit it to do whatever you need to do. If you need to add manager roles, test types, whatever, it's all done. So it's really, really easy to manage. So I just go in and say I want to add a template issue. It brings up the dashboard that I showed before. I select my issue, I can search for issue type and plug it in. To install it, we just got a YouTube channel out there. You can kind of go there and look it up. And it's got step-by-step. You can skip through the chapter markers. It's got where the latest release is. It's all out there so you can stand it up. It runs on Ubuntu. We also have some Docker images. So it's really easy to stand up, but it's really changed the way I deliver. I no longer use paper reports at all. I really just try to force my clients to use a tool. And if they want to use something else, I'm fine with it, but this is free, so they don't have to worry about dealing with any type of stuff as far as any type of financial stuff or anything of that nature. I don't have to worry about going through budget process. Here it is. This is how I deliver. Go download it. I export out a project file. They import it, and they can view all the information that's in their pen testing results. So it allows me to do consistent reporting. It allows me to enforce my testers the way they test. They test the way I want them to do because I'm the manager in the app. They can't add issues. If somebody says, hey, I found something brand new or it's not in the template, I'll just go in there and add a new issue into the template, and then they can select it. But no one can just go in and create new language. No one can go in and create new issues. They use what's there. Same thing with my testing methodology templates. They go in, the methodology's there, they test it. If there's something that someone sees there's some new attack that comes out there and someone found it, they're like, hey, this is really cool, look what I found. Well, let's add that to the methodology. So we go in and we add it to our methodology. And that's why I wanted to provide the OWASP one, because I know most people, when they start pen testing, they either look at like the OWASP templates, or they use it the hacker handbook, because in the back of the WA, you got that great, the last chapter is nothing but the methodology to test. And I always tell people that are juniors, you follow the WA back here, you're going to get a decent test of a web app. I mean, if you go step by step. And OWASP did a great job with their WASP methodology as well. And their mobile methodology is good also. I'm working on that right now to get that integrated into the tool as well. So paper reports, they're an old thing, they're dead. There's really not a reason to use paper reports anymore. And you're going to see more and more of this go away. Everyone's moving to ASPM solutions. Almost every scanning tool you see out there now, they have an ASPM, quote unquote, bolted onto it. And it's going to be the next big buzzword for a while, but ours is truly a real ASPM solution. We're giving the pen test part of it away. It's not open source, it's based on Elastic, but it's very community driven, and we will never charge for it. But if you get to the point where like, hey, I want to see everything. I want to see every vuln in my organization, and not only vulns, I want to look at the assets in my organization that I have control of and I don't have control of. I don't have control over AWS and all these things. Yeah, I may use it, but I know how many times I've done pen tests for clients who are like, hey, you found these issues with ciphers, but I can't control all the ciphers in AWS. They have this subset, and I can't do everything. And that's a great issue. I can fix what I can control, and there's some things I can't fix. So one of the great things about ASPM solutions, going back to our pen test reports, is if we're delivering in this way, we can show them, hey, this may be something out of your control, but at least it's here, totally documented in the foreground, and that this is an asset you can't control. So ASPM solutions are going to start coming more and more into this space, and it's really, I think, the way AppSec is going. I mean, we see AI as a big buzzword and a lot of talk around that, and I love it. I don't know how many people here use Postman, but Postbot is one of my favorite things on the planet right now. When you can build a Postman, project in Postman, say, hey, here's my request, and just writing up some things saying, hey, can you pull from this repo for words and or for attack vectors or whatever, or and for these inputs in these fields, and build tests for me, and it really cranks out literally like 150 tests for you for SQL injection or something like whatever you say you want it to be. It's awesome. I mean, so it's one of my favorite tools now in regards to API testing, because you can literally almost say, I want you to do this type of test. And then when you're done, you can say, oh, I like what you did there. So then I go back into manual mode. I kind of use that as an OSINT layer, and then I go in and start hammering things that look interesting to me. So I love Postbot. And we're actually going to, at some point in the future, going to start seeing the ASPM solutions themselves. I don't think it's on the roadmap for us right now, but as I'm sitting here talking, and my brain's always going about what can I add. But you're starting to see some functionality as well, where I've already seen even in scanner tools that they pop up a little chat box for some type of agent that's connected to some type of AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, where you can start doing prompts for it. So in the pen testing world, it's just going to be really exciting, but the days of just delivering regular reports is pretty much over. And I think ASPM solutions are going to be kind of just the way to go in the future, in general, when it comes to pen test delivery. That's pretty much the end of the presentation in that regards. Is there any questions or any feedback? Anybody just want to?
I'll bring you the mic.
Yeah, just a question around, because I'm not familiar with the tool at all, so do forgive me if this is a ridiculous question. But the community edition that you're supplying here, so the context is consulting firm, hundreds of different clients. Most of our customers are C-suite. I mean, they know how to work Excel, PDFs, Outlook, PowerPoint, and that's it. Web browser. Does the community version allow you to have multiple instances to where these different clients can log into their own kind of tenant environment to see their own results, or is it a different instance you would have to stand up per client to be able to deliver that information to them?
Yeah, it's not like a tenantable style product at this point. We really have, because the main product is designed as an internal ASPM solution. So how it came to about was we had a client that was using Splunk. And they're like, Splunk is not doing it for us. We can have it build dashboards for this or dashboards for that, but there's a lot of stuff we just can't track because they're external, or they're things that we can't necessarily, there's not an importable way to deal with this. So they reached out to us and said, you're already here consulting in different areas for AppSec, can you help us with this? And they built a tool called SaltMiner. And SaltMiner has solved almost every problem for them. They've been a huge client for us. They're already a big Fortune client. So all the problems you go through, where scaling, all that stuff you got to fix when you build software, we had to knock that out early. So we got all that kind of taken care of. But they're not multi-tenantable because they're a single organization, but they have a ton of business lines. So what we really focused on was roles. Your CISO role, he wants to see just his dashboards. Developers wants to see theirs. So we kind of focused on that. And in my delivery, because I have lots of clients as well, for pen testing, I usually just say, it's a free tool, stand up your own instance, I will give you the project files when we're done with our testing instead of a physical pen test document, and you can manage this yourself internal to your organization. So it's not really a tenantable type thing. I don't know where we're at with that, but it's something, any type of feedback I get like that, I immediately take back to stakeholders at my company and developers and see if we can start making that something that's on the item, so agenda. It's a great question, though.
Yes.
On that note, maybe would you be able to filter, let's say, API endpoints or something like that to a specific team, or like, I guess maybe you do run a report on a specific repository that or a set of APIs that a team runs or something like that.
Absolutely, because usually when you are doing tests like that, okay, so I'm testing X number of endpoints. I don't know how you run your tests, but usually when I'm doing tests like that, that is a collection. So when I run that test or whatever, when I'm pen testing that, I make a project called this collection. And then, so when it's in the tool, it's just an API at that point, but I just filter on anything that starts either with this URI to begin with, or this collection, or whatever. The filtering is insane in this and what you can filter on. You can filter on almost anything, because that's why we chose Elastic, because Elastic is so extensible in that way. It's nuts in the type of graphing you can produce.
Have you gotten any feedback on like auditors or assessors? So a lot of these companies, right, have a PDF report that they provide to an auditor for whatever compliance program. Have you gotten any feedback on auditors using, this tool or a tool like this as evidence in theirs, or are they demanding reports?
So that one, we created the report option, and you can create a report template for auditors. We have actually looked at that internal to our big client that's using this. And we also created a lot of types. So one of the things is when you have a category, when you're inputting a vulnerability, so once you've put that in and it's there, when you go in to view that information, the auditor can go in. Traditional auditor, they go in and they say, let's say a false positive challenge came up, and an auditor has to go in and actually look at that. They could go in and say, is this real? Is it not? Or is there, another action that needs to be had? But that is customizable, even that piece. So you can go in and you can create through the JSON stuff and basically break that out however you want. It's really customizable. It's really insane. I've even used it to actually do functional testing and creating test cases for stuff. So I was like, okay, instead of creating a methodology to test against, this is actually a test case I need for a functional test I'm running. And I've created it there as a checklist so I can have an intern or whatever come in and go, no, you just go to SaltMiner, click on this, and that's the checklist. These are the steps you go through to actually functionally test it.
Do the report consumers have an ability to be able to do a kind of annotation on the reports and have kind of a back and forth threaded discussion?
Yes and no. So in the UI of the portal, so this is one of the great features, is it has a complete audit log. So you know every tester that's touched it, and you know what they did to it. And you have notes. You have note sections. So you can go in there and say, here's a note or whatever. I need to upload this evidence to it to be part of the note or whatever. And then when I go check the audit log, it'll say, this was the tester, they changed this thing, and this is what they did. So I even have the ability to track everything that's been done within the engagement from that audit log. I don't know if that answered your question at all, but that was our approach anyway.
Anyone else?
Integration. So in the free version, we've got Burp, we've got Nessus, we're working on Zap, and then I'm open to literally anything. Just if you're using a tool and if it's just spitting out an XML, it's super easy. I can usually get a dev to crank that out in a couple of days. One of the problems I've run into with Zap is it puts a lot of binary junk in its project. So if you filter the binary stuff out, you lose part of the stuff in Zap. So we're playing with ways to make Zap work. That's why I don't use Zap.
OpenVise or Nuclei, some of the more popular open source projects.
No, but we have not. But we have connectors for tons of other security tools, like big, more like Fortify, Black Duck, Sonatype. We have connectors for all that. They're not part of the free version, but it's just a license. The free version is just for manual pen test data, stuff you import from Burp. You pushing a button. Hey, here's the file. Suck it in. I did a test. Here's the output of that test. Here's the file. The other stuff, it's all automatic. You set up the internal engine. You say this is the intervals in which I want to query the API of whatever the product is I'm using. All the data is put into the back-end portion of it that, for whatever you have to have for authentication, whatever, if it's a key or whatever, and then it runs on that interval and ingests the data, and then it automatically goes into your dashboard. And we have a lot of integrations. We're actually just partnered with Wiz. We're working on Wiz right now as well. So if there's a integration we don't have and you use, then we want to reach out to that company and try to figure out how we can make that happen.
Does the front end provide the capability to do project management for the pen test as well?
Does not do project management. Client management, yes.
Okay.
But as far as project management, no.
Okay.
It's more along the lines of this is the client, this is the assets that I. So trying to go through some of the language in this, but you can even change the language, but we call it an asset. So for example, if I'm doing a pen test against company A, and they say, this is our app, but attached to this app is 5 different IP addresses or URIs or whatever, maybe this part's the SSO piece, this part's this piece, I identify each of those as an asset. So then when you add your assets to the project, and then as you're testing, you say this was found against this asset, and that just, when you start generating your dashboards, that allows you more filtering, et cetera, into that. But that's about the extent of that. Then we do have roles for the testers.
Okay.
So
when you say that you create a template and you assign it to an intern, the management of who you assign that to is being managed outside of the tool?
yeah, well, no, there's roles in the tool. So
Okay.
you do have to be part of a role, and you have to have an account on the system. So I've had to have created you account, and then, have the roles, that I've assigned to you. So that way because I want you seeing pen test data, I want you seeing only the functional test data. So that can all be done in the roles part of the application.
All right, thank you.
And a lot of that is the Elastic piece. So we built all the code, but Elastic Excel has all that functionality. So if it's Elastic and Kibana, you can look at just even what's there, and then the stuff that we've built on top of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation then. We're got a
Thank
few
you everyone
minutes.
for coming out.